Okay, so I guess just to start off, do you want to just like introduce yourself? And I know you are one of many, so would you also like to, introduce the other members of the band and what they
Yeah,
play?
sure. My name is Milan, and I am the songwriter and one of the guitarists. And I started the band, and then there's our lead singer, Nina D, and then there's our lead guitarist, Caleb Davis, our drummer, Peter Kafari, and our bassist, Chris Doracco.
Awesome, cool.
So, yeah, we are 5.
That's like a good band. You got all your bases covered.
Yeah.
And so you kind of all come from different backgrounds in music, like you were in the Little Fighters. And so how did the band kind of get together and how did you all find each other?
It was entirely by coincidence. There's a lab in Bar Harbor, and Nina is a molecular biologist. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so she got a job there, and I tagged along, and we had known that Caleb was the guy around town who played, so we got together with him, and then the other two quickly, just they were around, and we all just started playing, and we had like an immediate chemistry, and it was really fun, so we recorded our first record, which was unimaginatively called Volume 1. And that was actually with a different bassist, Caleb's brother, Carl. And he was leaving town, so we wanted to get it all down. So we did that session really quickly. And then we gave it away for free. It's still for free on our website. And
awesome.
Somehow that, got, good press. And weirdly more press than any music I had ever done in New York had gotten. So
I guess people like free stuff.
I was inspired to keep going with it, and so here we are 4 records later.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so would that Volume 1 free album be a good place for people to start?
Well, no, not really. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground in the past 5 years, and that, we're a pretty different band. I still love that record. It's got some classic songs. I sang probably more than I should, and, Nina sings just about everything now. And I think we were more kind of being inspired by Americana and classic folk rock, like the Byrds and the Velvet Underground and stuff like that for the first 2 records. And then the more we toured and stuff and realized, who was and wasn't listening and what we could get away with, we started experimenting more. So, and now we're at this new record, Mary Weaver, which is pretty different. And I think it's a little challenging for people to figure out why we did that, or why it sounds so different from our previous records.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you briefly mentioned Bar Harbor, Maine, and I just kind of find it really interesting that you guys, a lot of bands opt to be part of big music scenes in cities. And so I was just kind of wondering what makes you guys stay in Bar Harbor, and what does the music community or just the community in general offer there?
Well, it's just because that's where our lives are. But I mean, if we had known that we were going to be so busy with music, we would have, definitely probably maybe moved or, looked out for moving to a different city or something. Not being a part of a big scene or being kind of affiliated with the main scene, which is a big sprawl of different people, has, it's just made it harder. or I don't know, maybe people paid more attention to us. I don't know. It feels like, when we leave like when we leave New England, it's kind of hard to get things like really going. So
yeah, absolutely. And so you also mentioned your newest album, Mary Weaver, and it came out a few weeks ago. So how did that album come to be, and kind of what was some of the inspiration for it? And did you guys work on it collaboratively, or did you and Nina bring songs to the group?
Yeah, well, I bring I just until recently was doing all my demos on 4-track cassette, and for every demo, I think I did 35 demos for Mary Weaver, and I did this weird thing where I would slow down the tape, and so I could sing it in a key good for me, but slow, and then I'd speed it back up, and it would pitch up my vocals, so it had like a cartoony sounding scratch vocal in Nina's octave.
Oh,
and
cool.
It was really labor intensive and weird, but so I made her all these guide vocals by doing that. And we had been approached by a studio and a producer about doing a record, and I wrote the album thinking that was happening, so I pushed pretty hard with the songwriting, and then that kind of just fell through, and so we recorded the whole thing. We had scrapped those sessions in Brooklyn and went back to Bar Harbor and found an empty house and set up our own studio there. And at that point, we had been recording ourselves for so long that, we were just getting pretty good at it. So, but in terms of the influences, we got, I think with Back to Soft, it was that was the album before Mary Weaver. We got our first taste of kind of what it's like to deal with a lot of press, and just interesting to see how critics saw things that we didn't see, like a big 90s influence, which isn't like, I see why people cite it, but it's not like huge for us. So
or now like the whole like psychedelic rock thing that's happening, and more like
or the newest thing is that there's a whole genre that's just called surf, which doesn't have anything to do with surf music from the 60s, and that like took me by surprise, because everyone's like, oh, the new Cokeweed record is surfy, and I was like, when I think of surf music, I think of like Dick Dale and the Ventures and stuff and Wipeout. So it's just like, but it's it's constantly changing lexicon of different genres, like beachy and surfy. Those are really hot adjectives now. And but really it was just kind of like seeing, just I don't know, we just needed to change it up. So we had been listening to, we listen to different types of stuff constantly, like everything. So we wanted to kind of branch out more and see what we could do with kind of really like hypnotic, repetitive rhythms like you would find in some krautrock, and kind of connect the dots between that and like the post-punk and soul music and David Bowie's
I can definitely see some of those vibes.
So it was just like just trying to make a sense of a lot of different music that we were vibing with at the time.
Yeah, and so like speaking towards the new album, Malocchio is like one of my favorites on the album, and it's also the song we've been spinning on the station the most. And I guess like upon further examination from me and our programming director, I guess it's Italian. It's kind of one of those little evil eyes. So like, how did you guys come up with that song? And you want to talk about the meaning behind, I guess, the title and how it connects a bit?
Well, Nina's Italian American, and she has all these necklaces with horns on them, like an ivory horn and a coral horn, and those are Italian, like they ward off the Malocchio curse, the evil eye curse. So the album Mary Weaver is loosely a song cycle, kind of like young woman in over her head, to really oversimplify it. But the evil eye is kind of the evil eye curse is a metaphor for the narrator's kind of fractured state of mind at the beginning of the record. So the lyrics are rather dark, which I don't think is immediately apparent because of the music, but even though it gets that way later on. But, so with Malocchio, it's this kind of bouncy song, but the lyrics are basically saying, like, stay away from me, I'm damaged goods. Like, I have an evil eye curse. So,
yeah.
It's I don't know what you'd say, a juxtaposition of the upbeat music and the rather dark lyrics.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of speaking towards other songs on the album, you guys also just released your video for Dead Man Walking, and the video is absolutely beautiful, but also kind of has like a little eerie feel as well, just as I guess what you're just speaking to. So do you want to talk about how that video came to be? Because it features also an amazing dancer.
Yeah, I'd love to. The Dead Man Walking video is just, well, first of all, we always thought that Chill was going to be like the breakout single, and that didn't really happen. And so we had a video for the Chill that was not really coming together. And so we had been contacted by this young woman, Lucy Sandler, and I thought she was a student, but she had graduated Emerson early and was freelancing, and so I just like reached out to her because like I needed a video, and it just like lined up really, really well, and it was definitely like the easiest video we've ever worked on. And she was like, well, I have this cool location, because the video is shot in her grandmother's apartment on the Upper West Side. And, when I was thinking of the song, like, what would be cool, I was like, well, a really cool dancer. And I was thinking, like, the Fly Girls from In Living Color from the 90s. That's where Jennifer Lopez first started her career. And so it was like, like classic hip-hop dancing. And we had been friends with Mariah, the dancer. She's actually from Cherryfield, Maine, which is really rural. It's the blueberry capital of Maine. And so, but then she had gone to Goucher and Baltimore to study dance, and now she's working in New York. And so I was like, I wonder if Mariah can do hip-hop dancing. But then she's like, no, but I'd be happy to do it. And so, what she came up with was so much better than anything I could have ever. I'm not a choreographer, by the way, so
yeah, you stick to the
really guitar. And I honestly I left Lucy and her assistant and Mariah and Nina, and like I think I took a nap in our van and they made the whole video. I just kind of put them all in the same room.
So you're not taking credit for this at all.
It's entirely down to them.
Yeah.
And I agree, it's beautiful. I think it's probably the best video we've ever had. I'm thrilled with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I touched on this briefly before, but I want to pick your brain about it a little bit more because I feel like the so-called psychedelic rock is making a big kind of resurgence in the quote-unquote like indie music right now, or at least some like psych rock.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, some
like Levitation Festival is like like a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate.
And so like, and I know that you guys are like genred as that a lot, especially with this new album. So I was wondering how you guys like kind of create your soundscapes for like, how do you decide like what an album is going to sound like?
Well, I mean, really, we're magpies. I mean, we were just trying to get this to sound like one of Brian Eno's pop vocal records from the 70s that he made before he started doing the ambient records. And, so everything is just us trying to do, like, our shoestring budget of something classic. And it always just comes out sounding kind of offbeat, So it's just, I think it has, like, in terms of soundscapes, I think that's a good, word to use because, we're students of how, the artists before us were making records and different studio techniques. And we've just always tried to recreate that stuff, but definitely on the cheap. And so, yeah, I think it always sounds a little psychedelic to people. But I think, sometimes I wish it was, more kind of like the mainstream, like garage psychedelia where people, because I think we would get a lot more work if that were the case. But instead, we're kind of doing these pop songs that sound psychedelic to people is how I kind of look at it. I consider, the songwriting to be pretty much in a pop music vein, even though it sounds psyche, I guess.
Yeah. And so, like, speaking towards kind of influences, like, what are some bands you are into right now or bands that you feel could be, like, I don't know, quote unquote, potential touring mates?
A potential for, excuse me?
A potential, like, touring mates, like, you
Oh,
open
gosh,
for them.
well, I don't know. I mean, there's so many bands working right now. I don't know who to tour with. There's...
Or just some bands that you're into right now, then.
Yeah, it's just, I honestly, like, we'd be thrilled to get on any number of tours. There's so many great bands right now. Unfortunately, I'm not, like, I check out a ton of new music as, I'm, booking tours and things like that. But when it really comes down to, like, writing, I'm pretty much listening to old records a lot. And then when I listen to new music, it's, like, stuff like Aphex Twin. So I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I got you. And you guys are actually going on tour really soon. And so what are some shows you're, like, excited about, or just what are you looking forward to about tour in general?
Well, really, it's going to be kind of our vacation. And so it'll be nice to get out of town. And we're definitely looking forward to our record release party at Baby's All Right in Brooklyn.
My favorite venue.
We have some great bands there. Prince Rupert's Drops, who are they're label mates of ours, and their records are worth checking out. And then the next night in Philly is cool. It's at Everybody Hits, which is batting cages plus an indie venue. And then there's a place in Western Mass we're going to in the Berkshires called the Dreamaway Lodge, which is famous because Bob Dylan and the Rolling Thunder Revue played there in the 70s, and then it was used heavily as a set in Dylan's movie, Ronaldo and Clara, so it's got a lot of vibey history.
Yeah, definitely have fun at Baby's All Right. That's one of my favorite venues, like, ever.
Yeah, I'm hoping it should be good. We've got a stacked bill, and my friend Walt from the Walkmen is DJing Scratchy Doors records. So
that's really awesome.
We should have a pretty good party. It's our one and only record release for Mary Weaver. So
very cool.
It should be a jam.
Yeah, and so I just have one last question for you. It's kind of a tradition with all of our interviews that we end with, like, a really stupid or silly question. So here you go.
Yeah.
Here's my silly one. If you could be a vegetable, what vegetable would you be?
I don't know. That's hard. I guess like beets because of they're like such a, I don't know, they taste good and they're such a
vibrant
great color.
Yeah, that's a good answer. You'd be surprised. We get some interesting answers with our questions. But thank you so much for speaking to us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Delaney. It was a pleasure.